Hi, I'm Corey Lakins, host of Glow Your Influence podcast. Glow Your Influence is a space where women rise, lead, and soar with purpose.
But inside
was something else
it
was
was
going on.
horrible.
A battle?
A horrible battle.
This podcast features powerful conversations with women who've turned adversity into influence and built impact-driven success. Rooted in faith, strategy, and real experience, each episode helps you shift your mindset, embrace your story, step boldly into your leadership journey. If you're ready to glow from the inside out, this show, it's for you. Hello, I'm Corey Lakins, and I'm your host of Glow Your Influence podcast. Today, we have the esteemed Dr. Debra Cox here with us. She's a speaker, she's an educator, and an author. And today, we're talking about breaking silence and obtain success. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Cox. We've known each other for quite some time, so I'm very excited to have you here to share your story. I think you have such a powerful story to share. There's so many levels of your story. And so I want you to unpack that for us today. Because for someone who has such a journey and a story to tell, there's so much that you can offer to our audience. And I'm hoping that we can unpack it in 45 minutes. But I want to get into it. And I want to talk about how women carry silent battles, right? And still showing up and have to be strong. And I think you're the epitome of that. And so I want you to talk about the story of carrying a silent battle. That's so powerful.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to speak here. Carrying the silent battle, wow. Actually, it started out when I was a child. When I was about 8 or 9 years old, I had to grow up quickly. My mother had 9 children, and it was difficult for her to manage them. And they were sickly. Some of the children were sickly. And my oldest sister, she had chronic asthma, very, very bad. And I remember the days of carrying her to the doctor. We had a jitney driver, Mr. Shirley, who would drive us to the doctors, and she would sit in the back, and I was always fearful of her taking her last breath because she had that rattle, that death rattle, trying to breathe. And then that went on for years. And as a child, I didn't realize the impact that it had on me. But eventually, my favorite sister, I took her to the doctor, and she was diagnosed with nephritis of the kidney. I still see that test tube to this very day. When the doctor took her in and he brought her upstairs, and I was 10 years old. 10. And he said to me, you see this test tube? And I said, yes. He said, this white stuff is called albumin. Tell your mom that she has less than 6 months to live. And I was livid. I'm 10 years old.
And where was your mom at the time?
She was at home with the other children.
Wow.
And I went home and I told Mom, and God blessed her with 9 months, and she passed on. 2 years after that, our house burned down. And my 2 baby brothers, who I babysat frequently, were killed in that fire. So when we talk about silence, we're talking about all that internal trauma as a child. By the time I reached middle school, I was no good. I was not a model student. I was just existing.
I'm sorry, what was that? You were what?
I was not a model student. I was just existing.
Existing.
Yes, just surviving. But I remember my connection. I've always had a connection with God. And I prayed a lot. And I saw the world through books and aspired, always
Did you
dreamed.
start reading books at the age of 10?
Yes.
Just on your own?
Yes.
What drew you to that?
Well, I noticed the world outside of me once we got out. I was brought up in a rural community, small town, one road, one way in, one way out. And when I got out, I noticed the world around me, so I knew that there was more to life than that. And my mother bought us encyclopedias. Of course, not too many of the siblings embraced those books, but I did, and I always dreamt. So from there, because of the trauma untreated trauma that I experienced, I ended up getting pregnant at a very young age. And
How old were you?
I was 16.
16.
Yes, 16. I had my first child. Dropped out of school. In the year that I was supposed to graduate, I went back and I obtained my GED. I always tell people now, from a GED to a PhD, I am truly blessed.
Yes.
And so living in silence all those years caused my self-esteem to plummet. I mean, I had no self-esteem. I didn't know who I was. People would say, you were beautiful, you had a beautiful smile, you were this, but I never saw it for a very, very long time. I ended up, in those days, you didn't just have babies. If you got pregnant, you went before the church, you apologized, and you got married. And so I got married.
At 16?
Yes.
Okay. This is the father's child? I mean, the child? The father of
Yes.
the child?
Yes.
Okay.
He's the father of my 3 children. And the marriage was very, very abusive and controlling.
Physically abusive?
Yes.
Emotionally?
Physically, emotionally, he was very abusive, and he had
Did the abuse
tons of
start-
affairs.
Did that start immediately, or did it happen a little while after the marriage?
Well, actually, it started immediately, because at 13, I started dating him, looking for love. I'm taking care of everybody else, but nobody's taking care of me. So I was looking for love, somebody just to show me some attention. And he did. And I fell right into the trap. And I will never forget the first day he hit me. And it was over a letter that I found in his car, written by another girl. And he slammed my head up against his mother's house. And the beating started from that. It continued from that point on. But I didn't internalize that as something that was wrong. I internalized it as, he must really care about me.
Well, you didn't know, right? Because
know.
you didn't have an example of what true love really meant. Is that right?
That's true.
So you met him when you were 13, and you weren't married. Did he show you any signs of being an abusive man?
No,
Okay.
no.
It wasn't until after the
After
marriage
I got
vows.
involved and deeply involved with him. It was actually before the marriage vows.
Yeah.
So, and it continued until I finally mustered up enough nerve to leave, and it took a lot.
How many years did you stay?
It was 10 years.
Wow.
So, 10 years, 3 sons.
And how old were you when you left?
I was in my 20s. I think I was about 25 or so. But the day that I left, I signed up for alimony and college.
In college?
In college. Because it was always a dream.
Okay, I was going to ask you, when did you have that desire to further your education?
Well, my mom used to send me to Minneapolis because her mother's family is there every summer to give me a break because I was so helpful to her. And my aunt, she was a teacher, and she was going to college at the same time. And I was going to be a nurse at that time, and her daughter was going to be the doctor. And so from that point on, you know, I've always had the dream of going to college. And then when that opportunity presented itself, that's the first thing that I did. It was very difficult. It was because there was such a huge gap in my learning that I had to stand up late hours with a thesaurus. We didn't have computers back then.
Right.
A thesaurus and a dictionary.
Right.
Decoding words and understanding the meaning of words and making it all happen so that I could move ahead the way I had dreamed.
And so, so you had some struggles with once you entered into college.
Oh, yeah.
How did you overcome them?
Well, I guess I'm kind of stubborn in that I was determined. Well, let me back that up a little bit. My ex-husband said
Your
that I would.
ex-husband, the first one.
Yes, the first one.
The first one. Okay.
He always said that I would never be anything and that no one would ever want me with 3 children. So I was determined that I was going to be. You would not define me any longer. Those situations in life that happened to me would not define me any longer. However, it was a journey. It did not happen. My healing did not occur overnight. So when I struggled in college, I got a tutor to help me.
Okay.
So it's like, no, I'm not giving up, you know, and I barely made it through. Someone said if you have a 2.5, that's all you need to get through the first 2 years. So
That was your goal.
that was my goal. To get that 2.5.
Right.
And when I got that 2.5, I said, okay. And I thought that I was on top of the world and that I was going to make things change for my children and myself as a divorced woman. And I ended up landing a job at, it was called Lawson's Convenience Store. And I wasn't making any money. I was like, oh my God, this is not enough. What am I going to do? My ex-husband's right. Maybe I'm not going to make it.
Yeah.
And then nope. So what I decided to do was go back and get a bachelor's degree. And then it just continued from that point.
So now you're how old after you get your bachelor's?
And my bachelor's, I was in my 30s.
In your 30s. Okay. And then what was the next pivot in your life from there?
The next pivot was leaving Pittsburgh.
Leaving Pittsburgh.
And going to Maryland, where I am now. Yeah, it was leaving Pittsburgh and going to get a government job is what I was.
So that's what I was going to ask you. So you got your your bachelor's degree and you moved to Maryland, and you began working for the government.
No.
No.
I had a degree in public administration, and I graduated cum laude. However, I did not have the internal strength or the internal confidence to even apply for the government job because you had to take a test. I was afraid, definitely afraid of tests.
And what do you think that was about? You didn't have that
It was about the insecurities that had built up over the years. And the insecurities, as well as knowing that even through middle school, I was not there. I missed all those years of education. So I knew that those gaps were there. What I knew, I knew. And that was what I learned in college. But I still knew that there were gaps.
So how were you processing all of that information when you just kind of was going through the motions in life? You know, you had your children, you got married, you went to school, and you left Pittsburgh, you moved to Maryland. So how are you processing all of this information without having had someone like saying to you, you know you've been through a lot of trauma, and you know that trauma affects your decision making, trauma affects how you function in society, right? So how were you processing your life?
Honestly, it was through God. And I don't want to come off as, it was through the grace of God. I prayed a lot and I quoted scriptures, "You're wonderful." And even though I didn't feel them, "You're wonderful, you're beautifully made." And I just kept going. And then eventually I sought a Christian therapist.
Okay.
And he helped me out a great deal. But it was still, it still wasn't enough. Because the trauma was, after coming into the knowledge about trauma and its impact on individuals, I fit the category of complex trauma.
Complex.
Because there are 5 different major types of trauma: the acute trauma, complex trauma, and so forth and so on. But I fit into that category. And so it took a long time and a lot of therapy and a lot of prayer to process it, because I did not have any confidence in myself. And so I overcompensated for a lot of things. I had to be the best of this. I had to be the best of the best on my job, the best looking, the best dressed, even though outside I looked good, but inside
was something else
it
was
was
going on.
horrible. It was just
A battle?
a horrible battle.
And what do you feel you were battling against?
Self-doubt.
So, well, this is a lot, because we haven't even gotten to the point of, the transition into your, profession and your career and all of that. And that's why I said, there's so much to unpack with your story. And I feel like it's really important to get the background of that. So you had 3 children, right? All boys, right?
All boys.
All boys. And then something happened to one of your sons. Let's talk about that.
My oldest son, he saw all the abuse. He was there, and he was impacted by it. It manifested in him in hyperactivity, and he couldn't focus in school, and he was always a troubled child. And as he grew older, I had to send him back to Pittsburgh to my aunt, who wanted to take him in.
To take care of him.
Then later on in his life, he was assaulted. He was assaulted from behind. He didn't know it was coming, so he couldn't put on he couldn't protect himself with, natural reflex defense. And he ended up in a hospital for over a year with traumatic brain injury. He had the back of his head where he was hit, that part of his brain died. It killed his occipital nerve.
Yeah.
And he could only see like through a straw. He had no peripheral. And when he fell and hit the ground, his frontal lobe he ended up with a hematoma. And when they removed it, the left and the right lobe died. So he had no executive functioning. He could not control anything. His brain wasn't telling him to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
He couldn't feed himself. He couldn't shower. And I remember the Spirit saying to me that love was going to heal him. And I say that because and this is in my book. It was hard for me to love him because the way he should have been loved. I loved him, but that closeness I could not give him.
You're watching Glow Your Influence. We'll be right back after this.
At BMW of Pittsburgh, we believe empowerment starts with confidence. The confidence to lead, to grow, and to shine. That's why we're proud to support the Glow podcast, a space where women's voices are heard, stories are shared, and inspiration turns into action. Just like every drive should feel powerful and purposeful, every woman deserves the freedom to define her own journey. BMW of Pittsburgh, proudly supporting women who glow, inside and out.
But because of my headspace
Yes.
and because of the trauma that I have been through and the way the things went down when it happened, my ex-husband told people that
He was his son. So you had to deal with the untruth
yes, for years. For years.
and the trauma of what he did to you. Yeah. That's a lot.
And so when God said that to me, love was going to cure him, heal him.
I get that now. I get that. I get that.
Yeah. So,
So
he
you-
was able to. He was healed to the point that he could be healed. He would never get his sight back. He would never have his executive functioning. So he was at REMAD. We fought long and hard to get him into a reputable place here in Pittsburgh, at REMAD Hospital.
Yes.
And they took care of him up until a year before his death, when he was taken out of REMAD by my cousin, who said that God told him to take him out. But my cousin put him out because he did not understand the extent of his illness. And he put him out in the street. I'm in Maryland, and he's here. And he lived a year and a month after.
He lived how long?
A year and 1 month.
After he took him out of the facility. And so you lost your son.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've dealt with a lot of loss in your life. Your brothers, two brothers,
My brother
one brother, and
was, my baby brother was killed by a car accident in Minneapolis 6 months before my son passed.
so after your son passed away, did that in any way change how you saw faith?
Yeah.
How so?
I was very angry because even though the love was distant, he was my rock. He was the one he was my cheerleader. When Mom, I'm proud of you. Mom, you've done this, you've done that. He was my rock. And when he was gone, and by someone who said that God said it, to take him out of that his safe place, I just didn't have the faith that I had before. I was like, when does it stop, God? Why?
So you were angry, which I think many people would be angry. How did it shape your outlook on who you are as a woman of God? How did it shape that?
Once I just said, okay, you didn't allow me to go through all of this for me just to exist.
So you truly felt that in your heart of hearts?
After a while, not immediately.
Okay.
I have to be honest, not immediately. I was pretty upset. After because we were in church. You were in church when he walked through and the church went up in praise because his prognoses were very poor. The doctor didn't think he would make it out of the hospital.
Yeah.
And I went back to my first love and said, okay, God.
To your first love.
Yeah.
So you were still trusting God through it all.
I understand mustard seed faith now. You hear it, but I do understand it now because all it took was just holding on just that little bit.
So for someone to carry as much as you have carried over the years, and we don't always know the right time to break our silence. We don't always know that for various reasons. Are you able to share with us when you realized the silence was no longer sustainable for you, that you needed to have a voice?
Yes, it was a young lady, South Hills Middle School, where I was a principal. And she shared her story with me.
Oh,
She was, I have to admit, she was a very troubled child. And it's funny, I was just reading a letter that she wrote to me the other day. And she wanted to commit suicide. And I understood that. And I shared with her what I had gone through. And I told her, look at me now. Don't do it. There's something inside of you that God wants to use. And then that's when I heard my own words, that your story is going to help a lot of people.
your story matters.
Yeah,
Your story matters.
yeah.
So when did you get your doctorate?
I earned my doctorate in 2004, during my second marriage.
Your second marriage?
Yes, my second marriage, and here in Pittsburgh at the University of Pittsburgh. I was sitting in church and I heard a woman give her testimony about how she had earned her doctorate degree and didn't pay a dime. And I remember reaching over to Sister Marquita Robinson and saying to her, that's going to be me. I'm going to get my doctor's degree and I'm not going to pay a dime for it. And that's exactly what happened. When the Lord had blessed me so with my position at South Hills Middle School, that Alan Leskold, who was I forget the title right now, but he was over the Department of Education at the University of Pittsburgh. And he had come to the school and saw my work, and he said they wanted me to come through their doctorate program, and they were going to give me the fellowship. And they first offered me the K. Leroy Urbis Fellowship. And I said, but that fellowship required me to not work for 3 years. And I'm just starting this trajectory. So I said, no. I said, "No, I can't take that. I'm not going to start working. I'm just getting started. Late in life, but I'm just getting started.
Right.
So they designed a fellowship for me, and they called it a Helen Faison
Oh, wow.
Fellowship. And I was the first recipient of the Helen Faison Fellowship. And that's how I got started and earned my doctorate's degree. And it,
So you become an author. How did
Yes.
that happen?
well, I ended up being a part of a group called Net 7 Collective. And one of the things that the women in this organization, they promote one another. And when Constance Carter, who is the founder of Net 7, heard my story, she said, "Doc, you've got to write." And so I did. And I wrote the book, I See Me, Hidden for a Season, Hidden for a Reason. And I honestly believe that I couldn't see me, that I was hidden for that season, but purposed for a reason.
Have you gotten clarity about why you were hidden?
Yes. Because if I would have seen myself back then, I'll be honest, girl, I would be a hot mess. I would have been a hot mess. So I'm thanking God that I was hidden for that season, and this is the reason.
And so, in the book, do you talk about a lot of the experiences that you share today?
Everything's in the book.
Everything is in the book.
From the time that both times when my mother didn't have the courage to, well, I don't know if I want to say courage, after losing my son, I know how hard it is to lose children. And when my oldest brother succumbed to nephritis of the kidney as well, I was the one who had to pull the plug. It's to tell the doctor, okay, he's gone, and the same with my youngest brother. So,
So, you know that women like yourself aren't supposed to make it as far as you have made it. To achieve the level that you have made, right? You have achieved your doctorate degree, you're an author, and you're an educator, right? Share a little bit about your journey and being an educator.
well, initially I thought that was my purpose in life. But I got into education because my sister, because she was sick, and then my baby sister who succumbed to brain cancer, they were in special schools. And they were always laughed at and talked about. And so when I fell into education, it was, I will never forget it. I was in Maryland and didn't have the confidence to utilize my degree the way I did. And someone said, well, why don't you just sub? Well, I was in a different headspace, and subbing to me and teaching was not prestigious. It's not a prestigious job, So I didn't want to do anything.
You felt that way, that it wasn't prestigious?
Well, it's not deemed as a prestigious job.
Oh, okay.
And then, yes, I felt that way. I had to be somebody big. I was going to D.C. to be a politician, be somebody big. A teacher? Oh, no. So I ended up, someone said to me, well, I couldn't find a job. They said, well, why don't you just start subbing? I said, subbing? So I started subbing, and I was really good at it. I was like turning tables and doing things of that nature. And so quickly I discovered that this is where my expertise were. And so I drove right to Georgia Mason University and earned my master's degree in education with an emphasis on emotionally disturbed and learning disabled individuals.
So, what would be your top takeaways from your book?
My top takeaways from the book is resilience.
Resilience. I like that.
Don't give up. No matter what you're facing, don't give up on yourself. Learn and figure out how to love you despite what you feel.
How should someone go about figuring that out? Like
Well-
what are some tools that you can offer someone that's watching that have gone through so much trauma, grief, you name it? What are some tools?
The very first tool that I would say is have a personal relationship with God. Connect with people who you aspire to be like, and make sure that you seek out professional help. So when you have that triad going on, you can't help but soar.
What is one truth that you want every woman to know about transforming pain into purpose and success?
There is nothing impossible if you believe, in spite of what you see, in spite of what you feel. Grab a hold of whatever inkling of faith in yourself that you have. I don't care if it's just a little drop. Grab onto that and push it and keep moving in spite of.
You
what
heard
you're
it,
facing.
faith. When a woman finds her voice, she doesn't just break silence, she builds a legacy.
It's your boy Malloy.
It's time to grow your influence.
At Catan Freddie Insurance, we've been serving our neighbors in Western Pennsylvania since 1940. Does your current insurance company offer appliance breakdown, underground utilities, and guaranteed replacement cost? Because we do, and so much more. Working with Erie Insurance allows us to offer superior coverage that fits your needs at a price you can afford. Call one of our 20 dedicated agents to find out more. At Catan Ferretti, keeping you protected is just as important as saving you money.